It's really part of our responsibility as a nation to help support people who are in that terrible situation.
It's all good, refugees coming, but you also got to look after local people as well.
We really cannot turn our face away from these people. Do not want to look the other way.
He's using this as a migrant takeover, that's what it is.
That was what attracted them to England, the kindness and the love that they've seen.
We are here just for looking for a safe life.
For 4 years, the world has witnessed the war in Syria and the 4 million people it's displaced. But it was a single image that changed their perceptions and ultimately government policy.
We are proposing that Britain should resettle up to 20,000 Syrian refugees over the rest of this Parliament. In doing so, we'll continue to show the world that this country is a country of extraordinary compassion.
But are they really welcome here? I travelled across the UK to find out. I've come to Charlbury, a picturesque village in the heart of the Prime Minister's Witney constituency in the Cotswolds, because it seems to me there's a real battle going on in the hearts of the British people. On the one hand, an incredible wave of compassion towards the plight of refugees from countries like Syria, but on the other, real questions about the impact of taking in so many vulnerable people on finite resources.
The 20,000 who are coming, they are the lucky ones.
But that's not in dispute at this meeting, where villagers have gathered to discuss the Syrian refugee crisis.
There are so many groups in so many different counties, it's amazing. I think the heart of the people is really crying out for the refugees. It's incredible.
1 in 10 people in the UK would offer up a spare room to a refugee family from Syria. And I think I'm very proud to count us in that.
One of the reasons people were trying to get to England was because they know that England has a really great reputation for helping and for giving aid, and that was what attracted them to England, the kindness and the love that they've seen.
There's no questioning their enthusiasm to welcome refugees. At the same time, it's an aspiration, not a reality. There's almost no sign of refugees or even immigration having impacted life here. Travelling north to Bradford, things could not be more different. This is one of the UK's biggest immigrant communities.
Honestly, I found it. Bradford is the best city for us because most of the people in Bradford is Muslim.
Iham is one of just over 200 Syrian refugees who've been deliberately brought to the UK under a joint programme between the government and the UN. His family have received housing, financial support and English lessons for 1 year.
I haven't any problems when I come to here. But for the Syrian family who is come to here illegal and then apply for the asylum seeker, those people have a lot of the problems, and not any special organization help them or support them. So for that, I found it's not fair. We are here just for looking for the safe life. But when our country return as it was in the past, we should come back to our country, because we want to rebuild Syria.
From Bradford, I travelled 200 miles south to Haringey. This borough has taken in more refugees than almost any other, and I wanted to see whether the social and economic reality of life here has shaped people's views of refugees.
I can't say I have a room because I live overcrowded already, but I feel sorry for them, please.
It's all good, refugees coming. There's nobody's racist or prejudiced around here, but you also got to look after local people as well.
My opinion, they know refugees are just terrorists which come back to harm UK populations.
The Selby Centre is one place that offers support to refugees. For those behind it, that's in everyone's interests.
Over a period of time, what happens is far from being a drain on public resources, refugees play a very constructive, contributory role to society. Our NHS would be really beleaguered was it not for the contribution of many different cultures.
It's one thing to look at the skills refugees bring as an investment, but many working class people feel that their lives are changing the most, but they're benefiting the least. The bloodshed of Syria may be distant in the light of the North Antrim coast, but the question of refugees is exposing a very different fault line. A motion to take more refugees in the area was rejected by councillors. How do you feel about the fact that your motion got voted down?
I was disappointed and saddened, but then that's politics. And really the sadness came from it wasn't a true representation of the spirit of Northern Ireland or the spirit of the people in our community who are willing to help and willing to open their homes, put their resources on the line, to offer their professional help.
So this is a place where there is obviously this compassion towards refugees,
yes.
But is the issue becoming bound up with something completely different, the part of the historical tensions in this region?
Yes, unfortunately, often some things in Northern Ireland, more than anywhere in the world, things are often politicised. I think it's lack of knowledge and a fear factor. It's the unknown, but we really cannot turn our face away from these people, and that's the general consensus. We do not want to look the other way.
That empathy is shared across the political spectrum, yet for other leaders it's outweighed by other fears.
Some people term it Islamophobia, but our concerns about too many people from the Islamic faith coming over and changing the nature of Europe, and people do have concerns and worries about it. But I think that more stems from the extremists within Islam rather than moderate people.
There's evidence that others in the town of Coleraine share that worry. Anti-refugee graffiti even appeared on a local church.
It is very suspicious at all males coming into a country with no... But let's have pretty good use of their mobile phones and everything.
There's probably enough homeless here already. I think should be looked after first.
I'd welcome them open arms, you know, the people who want to come.
If the troubles were to get really bad here and we were to move, I'd like to think someone would help us.
Back in England, the English Defence League march in Colchester, the ugly side of the debate. For the far right, the prospect of thousands of Syrian refugees entering Britain has reinvigorated their anti-Muslim cause.
Most of these people from Syria haven't even come from war anywhere near the war. They're just using this as a migrant takeover. That's all it is. The government has said, in you come because you come from a war-torn country. Most of them don't. That's the point. That's what we can't comprehend.
Their message is offensive, but it's one that taps into a deeper frustration about strained resources and a battle for the identity of Britain. Just an hour's drive from Colchester, at this North London synagogue, a very different sense of British identity is being forged. There's a shared experience of having fled persecution across cultural and religious lines here. Some believe that if Britain had been quicker to act, more of their families would have escaped the genocides of the past.
I'm not going to stand on the shoulders of the past and criticise, but clearly that is a lesson for us to have learned. And even last autumn, we were thinking, why is there not some scheme of kinder transport for Syrian children now? So what we're doing now, we hope, is a very modest ask.
The pressure on resources here is intense, but the sheer will of the people who live here has prevailed.
There is acute housing pressure, so we are a very full place. I'm sure that the people of Barnet will welcome the refugees, as we have so often in the past. After all, we all came here from somewhere else. The place wasn't built like this 200 years ago. We've all come here and made a life here.
Britain has a long history of hostility to outsiders, but it has an equally illustrious track record of defending them.
The two have coexisted, if uneasily, throughout the centuries.
If you look at newspapers from 100 years ago round here, they'll be full of alarmist fears that the British working man was being exterminated, or this was a foreign town, just as we hear today. But in the long run, there's a trajectory to these things, and Britain has proved many times that it can cope.
The LNER steamer Prague brought to Britain 200 Jewish children, refugees from Germany. They came from middle-class homes in Berlin, Leipzig, Breslau and Hamburg. The youngest among them were 5 years old, the eldest 17. They are to be trained for useful service in Britain.
I think how we feel about refugees is really a question of how we feel about ourselves. Coming from a family which fled persecution to come to this country on both sides, the plight of refugees means something personal to me. My father's father, like the children in this statue, came to Britain just before the Second World War, escaping the Holocaust of Nazi Germany. And my mother's family were unable to return to their homeland in Ghana because of political persecution. The fact that they were able to come to this country and find sanctuary, for me, is not just a part of my own history, but the history and identity of this nation too.
I've travelled across the country from north to south and found one thing. Britain's response to the refugee crisis will depend on how people reconcile their own sense of identity and the instinct to welcome those in need. And the British people, like they have been so many times over the centuries, are torn.